everybody, I'm Bree the Plant Lady checking in with a native garden tour. It is the middle of October. I am preparing to leave for a few weeks, and I really wanted to show you how all of the native borders have grown in as they are finally almost reaching being a year old. I have to say, I am absolutely thrilled with how everything looks, and most of these plants have gone way above and beyond my expectations. So let me give you an up close view. Well, here in the perennial pocket garden, these are all perennials, native perennials. This was planted last August, so it's a little over a year old, this border. And these were primarily planted as 1 gallon perennials. And, you know, it's consistent in the spring and fall. The small leaf salvias, the Salvia greggii, really come through strong with the most incredible bloom set. And you can see these huge bees absolutely love visiting these flowers. This is Salvia greggii alba, and I really like the white flowers in contrast with that dark leaf of that penstemon behind it. And of course, I'm thrilled to see echinaceas are putting out some fresh blooms. These had flowered earlier in the season, and the finches took the seeds and I cut the stalks down, and well, lo and behold, they are rejuvenating. I also, back in the earlier, I don't know, August time, had trimmed back these Joe Pye weeds because they were looking kind of brown and ugly. And I'm so glad I did, because you can see where I cut them right here. See that stalk? Then they ended up branching out and they're flowering again. And of course, these are also loved by the bees and other pollinators. So it's really nice to have this second flush of flowers. Now, here we've got one of my favorite plants. This is Agastache Poquito Orange. And this is such a beautiful plant. And though it's not getting nearly the same attention from pollinators as the neighboring salvias are, I love the combination with this, you know, pale orange and then in down to the salvia rainbow. Of course, you cannot beat the white cloud Muhlenbergia, which is flowering much earlier this year than it has in past years. Usually this is something that blooms later in October into even November, but this year they are just in full flower right along with the pink muley. Actually, I say that, and how funny is this? The white muley is in full bloom, and look here, this is pink muley, and it's only just starting to put out the flowers. So it's very contrary to, in my experience, what the normal order of things is. But, you know, who am I to say anything? Sometimes these are just observations, and every single year is different. Now you can see the Orangium that I put in about a month ago are really starting to get well established. And of course, I love all of the different asters. Just going to call them asters because I don't remember what their new scientific names are. And I'm not exactly sure which one this is. I need to do some research. It was a landscape plug, but I really like it. I like that dark purple. And along through here, I'm excited to show you that the garlic that Callie and I planted 2 weeks ago is all starting to grow. You can see it's growing right along the edge, all across here. If you recall, we planted 100 garlic cloves throughout this border. So we'll have ample harvest just from this one bed that's so conveniently located right off of the kitchen. And I just want to highlight that white cloud Muhlenbergia again from this angle with the sun shining through. They are just the most beautiful flowers. It's definitely my favorite ornamental grass. And if you're not familiar with it, you should definitely look it up. I will hopefully plan to have some landscape plugs of this available at the Spring Open Garden next May. And you can totally understand why it's one of those plants that I simply wouldn't want to live without. Well, as you can see, we have a gorgeous blue skied afternoon. It started as a rainy mess, and I actually had 2 garden clubs here for a tour, and we did it in the wet, and it was still a lot of fun. But the gardens certainly do sing when the sun is out. And I am just so impressed. I've been telling visitors all week how, I can't believe how much the herbaceous layer in this native shrub border has grown. These were all landscape plugs planted after Memorial Day. And I just think that it is truly remarkable the vigor that these plants possess from being planted really as a relatively small landscape plug, either a 50 or a 32 size. Now, as you can see, the bees are still loving on this awesome Monarda. And of course, in front of that is a small white cloud Muhlenbergia, because you can't ever have too many. And in front of this, Mehania has been a wonderful bloomer for many, many weeks. And thrilled to see Echinaceas continuing to bloom. Really, overall, this Rudbeckia triloba has been completely outstanding. Definitely the longest blooming Rudbeckia of any in the collection. And I'm hopeful that bushes like this that went deciduous are actually going to rebound without trouble. You can see it's got good foliage at the base, and I think this was really just from heat and drought stress. But long term, hopefully that will recover and look better next year. And, we've had a few rainy days, mostly because I've had people visiting. We have another rain day coming up because I have 20 people visiting that day. So, I'm very consistent. But it's great because I haven't had to run sprinklers. And it's nice that the plants are really getting better established after a very dry summer. Now, up here, this corner is definitely my favorite of all the areas of the new garden. So we've got Calamintha nepeta along the edge, which is great because that really helps deter the animals. And then we've got October Skies Aster. I'm just going to call it October Skies Aster. If you look up October Skies, it'll show up and you can get the real name. And then, of course, this pink muhly grass is all starting to really show off. And then behind that is the Ruby Falls Cercis canadensis, the great redbud. And the panicums aren't as impressive as I was hoping they would be, but maybe next year they'll bulk up a bit. And the aronia definitely suffered through the heat of the summer, but again, hope springs eternal that by next year these will be, kind of more adjusted to this condition. I'm very excited to show you that this native witch hazel, which I'm going to give you the name of, this is Hamamelis virginiana Sunglow. This is actually a plant that I was first introduced to at an IPPS meeting in Tennessee a few years ago. It's got wonderfully fragrant yellow flowers, obviously blooming right now in middle of October. And I love witch hazels in general, and I don't have a lot of the native species, so I'm really excited to have this included in the garden. And I have a great story about that Hamamelis. We were at an IPPS meeting, and my dearest friend Dennis, who is the one that gave the wood and had that bench made for us as a housewarming present. We call it Den's bench. He was actually here last night, spent the night at the Airbnb. He's going to be on this big IPPS trip with me starting next week. But he and I were on different sides of the room and didn't know that we were bidding against one another on that Hamamelis. And we got the price way, way up there. And then he came over to me and was like, let me buy it. I'm going to give it to another nursery that was at the meeting. They're going to propagate it, and I will get you a piece back so that you can have it in your garden. And, we were laughing about that last night when we were walking the gardens to see how beautiful that plant is now. And I think that was like maybe 2018 when we had that meeting. So really, that tree has grown relatively fast considering it was used as a chopping block for, you know, propagation of many. The unique thing about that particular one is that it actually roots from cuttings. It doesn't have to be grafted, which most Hamamelis are very difficult to produce, and so they end up being grafted, and then you have to really make sure that you don't have the understock growing. So it's just like it takes one level of no stress out of it, you know, by not having it on a grafted rootstock. It makes it that much easier to grow. And just to give you a view of how this garden looks on all sides, this section has been getting eaten by deer basically on a daily basis. I really do need to bring in some cattle fence panels. I need to do that before I go on this trip. But I'm really pleased overall with how it looks. I can't even imagine what it's gonna look like a year from now when it'll have a lot more age to it. Remember, all the shrubs went in on January 15th and all of the perennials went in after Memorial Day. It's the middle of October now. That is not that long of a growing season for everything to look this lush and healthy and, well, just really filling out so quickly. And this bed, you know, it's different look because it has the Carex understory. And I know for some people that looks a bit messy. And, you know, I have to keep reminding myself that, you know, the shrubs are going to grow. These are tall plants. Some of these things are going to be every bit of 15 to 20 foot tall. So in a few short years, it's going to be very different because it's not just going to all be one level. But for being in less than a year old, I'm actually really pleased with the growth and development. Now, I think the keys in this bed, of course, are the little blue stem, Sisycarium, Scoparium, the blues, which are here in the front, and obviously the white cloud Muhlenbergia is just like the most amazing color and texture. And of course, along with that, I think the addition of the Orangium yuccifolium, this broader leaf, was a really important texture that was missing from the original design. I'm very glad to have been able to add those. Those, of course, came from Carolina Native Nursery. Remember, all of the shrubs in this border came from Carolina Native. All of the grasses came from Hoffman Nursery, and the flowering perennials came from New Moon and North Creek Nurseries. Now, I was explaining to the garden tour today, and I know I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again. I had to pull out a lot of shrubs from this border because the reality is it's too hot, it's too sunny for some of the species. And I don't regret it. I'm glad I had the experience firsthand to recognize that this is a really extreme condition. And instead of experimenting with more shrubs, I just leaned into what was doing well, and I got more Spirea alba, which you can see is actually blooming a little bit right now, right here. Really beautiful plant. I also got more Spirea tomentosa, which is a pink flowered Spirea. Both of these are native. And I got more Fothergilla gardeniae. And the Fothergilla, just they get amazing fall color, and well, they've been really proving themselves as being heat and drought tolerant. So this is Symphotrichium georgianum. Again, this used to be an aster. Botanists changed the classifications of the genera a few years ago, and well, I haven't learned it, but you have this one labeled, so that's good. You know, again, that white cloud Muhlenbergia is just so incredible. And, you know, it'll be really amazing, again, to see what these borders look like a year from now, because I think that the shrubs will be taller and we'll have a little bit better sort of differentiation. of all the different plant material, and you'll be able to see kind of like ground plane, middle, and then taller plants that are, you know, bursting out. Right now everything is like the same level and it's a little awkward, but remember, it's only 9 months old. It's still a true baby. Of course, you can see this pink muley coloring up here in this corner. And well, obviously this is Muhlenbergia season and it makes me extremely happy. And in the east meets west border, first of all, the live oak. Everyone is so impressed with these and I'm so glad. I'm so grateful to Sunel for doing such a great job pruning these because they really have incredible architecture. Definitely gonna invest in more. And through here you can see a lot of these perennials are, you know, in first year. They're not doing a lot. I'm just gonna wait and see. If I need to add more next year, I will. You know, I think this was Snow Flurry Aster, and it has been getting eaten a lot, so it's not very impressive. But you can see the white cloud and pink muley growing in here. It's great to see those getting some size. And I really, really love this Scutellaria in Cana, the hoary skullcap. I got this last month from Carolina Native, and I think it's a perfect addition to this border, particularly with the backdrop of the Pycnanthemum muticum. Obviously, it's kind of a loud time of day. We've got school buses and trains passing, but I did want to tell you guys that I am starting to dream up a new big garden for the middle of the front yard here. And of course, if you've been following this journey, you know the reason that we didn't already plant a big bed there is because this is my tent space for covered outdoor areas, because when I throw an event, it is basically guaranteed to be a washout. And that is continuing to prove true. But we have decided to go ahead and have a really spectacular house built. We are in the queue for a January build. It's going to be 16 foot deep, 32 foot long, with an 8x8 entry, double door entry in the middle. And it's going to be located in along kind of the property border of the backyard here at the Carolina Garden House to block the street view from the back. And I'm really, really excited about this for a number of reasons, but namely, I won't need to rent a tent because the greenhouse will serve as my outdoor space, my outdoor covered space. So if we have an open garden and it's raining, seeds can go into that, or if I'm teaching a class, we'll be able to go in there and we'll still be able to get our hands dirty. And it also means that I don't have to keep so much turf in this front yard. And ultimately, I think the addition of one more really big bed in the middle is going to make these shrub borders make a lot more sense. So my goal here, and I have not actually put it on paper, I've just been daydreaming about it, is to put a live oak in the middle. And then I don't know, I love the grasses so much that it would be really cool to just do a huge grass installation. The grasses definitely are sort of the easiest to adjust to full sun, to the reality of the very extreme climate that we have here in central North Carolina, Zone 7. But of course, as we get closer to building that out, I'll definitely continue to share updates because I'm really, really excited about it. As intimidated as I was a year ago to rip the Band-Aid off and get this project started, I am like counting down the days until I will have some open time to be able to get a whole new bed developed. So I really sincerely look forward to sharing updates with all of you on that. And I do hope that you'll be inspired by today's garden tour featuring all of the amazing native plants planted here at the Carolina Garden House. Well, as always, everybody, thanks so much for watching. Happy gardening.